can't hear you turns up his volume all the way and then we yell. Bless you.
Video's live.
All right, yeah, so welcome back, everyone. New semester, it's good. So I was originally going to do this on dark triad personality traits. It is still tangentially related to that, at least, as Machiavellianism is one of the traits. I was putting together the dark triad one and then kind of realized that I had the most to say on Machiavellianism. So, but we're going to reuse some of the dark triad slides. It's you can see that the other two sides of the triangle of the dark triad are narcissism and psychopathy. And then obviously Machiavellianism on the very bottom. So what is the dark triad and why do I want to tell you about it? So the dark triad is an immoral trifecta of personality traits that result in immense personal power. And just to give a little bit more context, who are people that have dark triad traits? Felons, violent felons in prisons do, politicians do, and people who are in executive management positions at very top companies do also. So that's just a very interesting correlation between felons and politicians and CEOs. So, some famous examples: Charles Manson, the leader of the Manson quasi-cult, who got a ton of people to follow him and commit murders for him. Very dark triad. You also have Saddam Hussein, Hitler, and you have a couple of US presidents. You have Lyndon B. Johnson and Robert Moses. Those two have excellent biographies by Robert Caro, if anyone wants to read them. They're very long. One of them is 4,000 pages. But very, very detailed, very well written, and very exposing the fact that both of these people were very apt in gaining power and keeping power, and in one case was not good at ultimately keeping it until his death. Then you also have FDR and Lee Kuan Yew, who are actually self-prescribed or self-described Machiavellians, which is interesting, and both of them did very incredible work, and you wouldn't necessarily say that they were dark people, but they did use some of the traits that I'm going to describe. And you have Steve Jobs, who is very well known for having a cult of personality bubble around him, and actually having things described as a personal, invisible field around him, where he just affected everyone around him. And it was described at times very narcissistic and very powerful. So, and then also lots of world and business leaders today and in the past have shown these traits and were very effective in gaining immense personal power. So the dark triad is not just you have it or you don't, and you have all the three personality traits or you don't. It's a spectrum. Everybody has a bit of narcissism. If you did not, you would kill yourself, because that's what they found among people who did commit suicide. So they actually had such a low sense of self-worth that they didn't feel like their life meant anything more than the people around them. So for us to be living here right now means that we have some sense of ego, some sense of narcissism. And then also everyone has a tendency towards Machiavellianism, some more than others. In general, women are slightly better at manipulation than men. In general, there's another in general that I have, I forgot it. But yeah, but it's a spectrum, not an absolute thing. You can have high amounts of all of them and still have something else, and you will not be dark triad, you will not gain personal power, or you can tend towards a different moral compass and you'll be in jail instead of being a politician or someone with immense power in the business world. So just a little bit more on the three schemas in the dark triad: narcissism, grandiosity, pride. You have very little empathy towards other people. It's where you literally believe that just because you exist, you are better than everyone else, no matter what. You have Machiavellianism, which is a tendency towards manipulation and the exploitation of other people. A cynical disregard for morality, and a focus on self-interest and deception of the people around you. And then psychopathy: antisocial behavior, impulsivity, selfishness, callousness, and no show of remorse, no feeling of remorse or guilt for any past immoral action. And then Machiavellianism is, of the three, the only trait that's socially maladaptive, which means that you can actually learn Machiavellianism. It's not something that is innate inside of you. Yeah, as I said before, some people are slightly better at it than others, but in general, almost everyone can get to the same level of it through practice and through self-study. Narcissism, generally born in you, you could cultivate it through meditation, of just essentially you only focus on yourself for like a year at a time, and that by the time you get out of it, you are a narcissist because you haven't had any contact with anyone else. And then, but I mean, that's not exactly something that anyone would really want to do or should do. I mean, it could really mess you up, I'm guessing. And then psychopathy, again, technically cultivatable via meditation, but very, very difficult and not something everyone would be able to do. Whereas Machiavellianism is socially maladaptive. You can learn it. So, the definition of Machiavellianism: the tendency to see every social paradigm and every scenario that you come across in life as just a game, as something that's to be played at the highest level to acquire a strategy with meticulous maneuvering, even if it's just a situation with a couple of people that you barely know. This is entirely a game. You don't factor in any emotion or personality into any of it. All it is just a kind of a reframe in your mind. It's just a mental model. It's just a way of looking through a lens to the world around you in a different way than you currently are now. So, and then obviously you get a couple of these maxims where you view love, business, and politics. These are all forms of war. There's no, essentially it's just a person but in a different set of clothes. And keep in mind, I don't generally believe all of these things. I just think it's very interesting that some people do, and that it generally tends to result in prison or in personal power. And then what I think is the central tenet of Machiavellianism: dehumanization and objectification of everyone for only their skills and utility, instead of viewing them as a personality. If I looked at, I don't know, someone in this room, I'm not going to pick out someone. Jim, if I look at Jim, what can Jim do for me? That's the only thing that I view in him. I don't view him as the guy with the great beard. Unless I want to have some use for his beard. Yeah, but I would only view him as a guy who is a very good developer and I could possibly use that sometime in the future. I don't think of him as a good person. I don't even think of him as a bad person. I just think of him as a utility. Essentially just something to be used for your own personal gain. You can see where the narcissism part of the triad comes into play with this. The third one, what appears to be is. This is one that was popularized by the 48 Laws of Power, or Green. It was, I think, the third law that he had, where the only thing that matters in your ascent to personal power is what your appearance is, what your reputation is, what you actually do, but what no one sees doesn't matter at all. And Robert Greene would say that you have to guard your reputation with your life, because your reputation is your life. What appears to be is. And then the fourth, whoever has the most correct data will win. There are two corollaries. The first one is you want to get as much data, you want to get as much correct data from whoever you're playing the game with. So if you're trying to get a promotion, you want to get as much correct data from all of your coworkers, everyone who works for you, and everyone above you. Because more data will never hurt you. More correct data will never hurt you. The second corollary would be that you want to because you are playing a game against everybody else, you want to deceive them. You never want to give them information that could be useful for them in their ascent to power, which consequently means your descent in power. You're never going to be playing a game of power where it's not zero sum. So when you want to spread misinformation about yourself, about others, and at the same time be filtering out information about everyone else who is playing that game. And then whoever wants to go further in the quest, or not the quest, but whoever wants to gain an upper hand in power for a potential loss in morality is going to be able to make that trade-off. As it says, yeah, whoever is willing to go further is going to win. If you deny a winning strategy because it is immoral, then you will get immediately a lower hand than your opponent. So, just a thought experiment for you, just to see, kind of try to view this through the lens of a Machiavellian operator. So, you're promoted at work because your old boss left. Your old coworkers, who are now your subordinates, don't really respect you. They're constantly challenging your authority, they make your job hard, and it wears on your psyche. Remember, you have a very large ego. You literally cannot handle people who are colliding with you. Because in your view, you think that you are, by existing, the best one there, and you can't stand that other people won't pander to your needs. And if this continues, you'll lose your job or get demoted for not being popular. So try to think through the lens of only viewing this as a game. People are just pieces. In this, they don't actually have personalities. This is obviously easier because we don't know these people. So we actually can think about this in a almost completely rational way. So what would you do? What is the overarching strategy? Jim?
Throw a party.